When Marvin lost his wife at 69, the chorus of voices around him offered what they assumed was solace. "You're still young enough to find someone new." The sentiment was meant to comfort, perhaps even inspire, and to Marvin, in those quiet, aching months after the funeral, it sounded reasonable, logical even. After all, no one pictures their golden years spent in solitude. Our culture paints love as the crowning jewel of a life well lived, companionship as the balm to aging's uncertainties. And so, after 2 years of grieving and reflection, Marvin took a cautious step forward. He began dating again. He met someone gentle, kind-hearted, someone who made conversation easy. They shared cozy dinners, laughter under the dim glow of restaurant lights, and long, unhurried walks that reminded him of a different time. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, something shifted. The quiet joy that Marvin had once discovered in solitude, its stillness, its subtle clarity, began to recede. His routines, once grounding and deeply personal, became disrupted. His sleep, once steady and restful, grew erratic. Small disagreements, the kind he used to let go of, began to fester and multiply. And what had once been the comfort of connection soon curdled into tension. Eventually, Marvin stepped back. He ended the relationship and made a quiet return to solitude. What he said then stayed with me. "I didn't feel alone when I was by myself. I felt alone when I had to lose myself to keep someone else happy." We live in a world that idolizes love stories, lifelong partnerships, the comfort of having someone. And for many, those relationships are indeed nourishing, fulfilling. But the truth we often overlook, sometimes deliberately, is this. For a growing number of people over the age of 65, choosing to remain single is not a sorrowful fallback. It's a deliberate, empowering choice. It's not a surrender to loneliness. It's an embrace of peace, of rest, of the self. Being single in your later years doesn't have to mean isolation. It can mean liberation. It can mean stability, autonomy, and the rare luxury of waking each morning without the burden of compromise or emotional strain. For many older adults, solitude isn't a void to be filled. It's a sanctuary to be protected. In this exploration, we'll walk through 7 profound reasons why staying single after 65 might not just be good enough. It might be the best decision you'll ever make for your health, your happiness, and your peace of mind. Stay with me through reason number 7. It's the one no one talks about, yet it quietly shapes the lives of countless seniors. Let's begin. Reason 1. Emotional stress from conflict. No matter how well matched 2 people might seem, all relationships come with some level of friction. Misunderstandings, divergent habits, different ways of viewing the world. These are the common threads in any human connection. In our younger years, these tensions feel like part of the growing process, something to work through and learn from. But after 65, the equation shifts. Energy becomes a more precious commodity. Patience wears thinner. What once felt like a minor disagreement can echo through your nervous system for days, leaving emotional residue that's difficult to shake. Aging changes how we metabolize stress. Our nervous systems aren't as quick to recover. Sleep becomes lighter, more fragile. Emotional turbulence, even from small arguments, can spill into our health, triggering fatigue, anxiety, or even depression. Edith, 73, experienced this firsthand. After a decade of comfortable solitude, she entered a new relationship. At first, it felt like rediscovering a part of herself. Dinners with company, evening walks, someone to share the silence. But not long after, the cracks appeared. Her partner criticized how she spent her time. He called too often, left little room for space. What began as affection morphed into control. And with that came stress. Deep, consuming stress that unearthed old wounds she thought she had buried long ago. 6 months in, she ended the relationship. It felt like finally getting a full night's sleep after years of tossing and turning, she said. And she meant it, not just metaphorically, but physically. Her body relaxed, her breathing deepened, her sense of self returned. For many seniors, this story is not unusual. Emotional stress from past relationships, divorces, or loss often leaves behind scars. A new relationship, no matter how well-meaning, can inadvertently press on those tender spots. And while companionship sounds comforting in theory, in practice it can introduce a level of emotional volatility that the body and mind, at this stage in life, simply cannot afford. Choosing to remain single doesn't mean closing the door on love. It means choosing peace over pressure, calm over conflict. For many, that trade-off is not just worth it, it's vital. Reason 2, financial complications. Love may be blind, but money never is. In fact, it sees everything. And when you're over 65, your financial world isn't just about numbers. It's about security. It's about protecting the nest egg you've spent decades building, ensuring you can cover medical expenses, preserving something to leave behind for your children, your grandchildren. Introducing a partner at this stage, especially one with a different financial philosophy, can unravel that stability quickly. At 30 or 40, if a relationship causes financial strain, there's time to rebuild. You can work more hours, change careers, recover from setbacks. But later in life, most people live on fixed incomes. Retirement savings are finite, and the margin for error is alarmingly small. A partner might come with debt, reckless spending habits, or assumptions about shared finances that don't align with your values or boundaries. Even small things, like grocery shopping, home repairs, vacations, can become battlegrounds if financial expectations aren't perfectly in sync. Roger, 68, learned this the hard way. After losing his wife, he reconnected with an old high school friend. Their bond was instant. Within months, she had moved in. Roger, generous and hopeful, paid for dinners, trips, and household upgrades. But slowly, he noticed his savings draining faster than he'd anticipated. His partner had expensive tastes and assumed costs would be split, though her contribution rarely matched the plan. When he finally raised the issue, she grew defensive. Tension crept in. The sense of comfort that had once defined their relationship began to dissolve into resentment. It's not just about bank balances either. Legal and bureaucratic entanglements, taxes, Social Security benefits, pensions can all be impacted by a new marriage or cohabitation. Some seniors lose access to essential benefits when they remarry. Others find themselves in difficult conversations about inheritance and estate planning, especially when adult children are involved. Blended finances can lead to blurred lines, and blurred lines often lead to conflict. Remaining single allows you to maintain full control over your money, how you spend it, save it, or gift it. You don't have to justify your choices or negotiate with another person's preferences. That control isn't about selfishness. It's about preserving the independence you've worked so hard for. Reason 3, loss of routine and personal space. Over time, we craft a life that fits us, a certain brand of coffee in the morning, the rhythm of your favorite news broadcast, a midday walk, a late afternoon nap, a quiet moment in the garden. These small rituals, repeated day after day, become the architecture of our lives. Especially in retirement, these patterns offer structure, comfort, and a deep sense of self. But when a new relationship enters the picture, those routines, however sacred, are often the first things to go. Louise, 70, had been on her own for more than a decade. She loved her mornings, waking up early, journaling in her backyard, enjoying the silence. Afternoons were for reading, for crafting, for watching the birds. But after she began seeing someone new, weekends together soon evolved into cohabitation. And then things shifted. He liked to sleep in, blared the TV during breakfast, and rearranged her carefully organized kitchen without asking. Nothing catastrophic, but slowly, subtly, her home no longer felt like her own. "I didn't realize how much my little habits mattered," she confessed, "until they were no longer mine." That's the crux of it. Compromise, even the small kind, chips away at freedom. You begin to share your refrigerator, your television remote, your quiet afternoons. You negotiate dinner times, sleeping schedules, even where to store the laundry basket. And while relationships require collaboration for many seniors, that collaboration begins to feel like surrender. Personal space is more than just square footage. It's autonomy. It's the freedom to move through your day without accounting for someone else's preferences, without having to explain or justify your rhythm. When you choose to remain single, you preserve that space, not out of selfishness, but as an act of self-respect. You wake when you want. You eat when you're hungry. You follow your impulses, your desires, your internal clock. And for many older adults, that kind of sovereignty is not just comforting, it's joyful. Reason 4, the burden of caregiving. Eventually, aging introduces us to its most humbling reality, declining health. Whether it's our own body or the body of someone we love, we will all face the vulnerability that comes with time. And while the instinct to care for a partner is noble, even beautiful, it's important to acknowledge the toll it takes, especially when you yourself are aging. Entering into a relationship later in life may begin with companionship and joy. But should your partner's health fail, you may suddenly find yourself not as a spouse or lover, but as a caregiver. And caregiving is not a passive role. It is exhausting, demanding, sometimes isolating. The romantic partnership you envisioned can slowly, quietly dissolve into a daily grind of medications, doctor's visits, physical labor, and emotional strain. George, 76, met Ruth at a church potluck. Their connection was swift. Within 4 months, they were living together. A year later, Ruth's mobility declined. George took on everything: meals, cleaning, medication management, bathing assistance. He never complained. But the strain showed. His blood pressure climbed. His sleep diminished. He withdrew from his beloved community center. What was once a peaceful retirement became a full-time responsibility he hadn't prepared for. This is not to say caregiving is wrong. For many, it's a labor of profound love. But when taken on unexpectedly and without support, it can lead to burnout, especially when your own health is fragile. Choosing to stay single isn't a rejection of love. It's an acknowledgement of your limits. It's recognizing that your energy is precious and finite, and that preserving your well-being is not selfish. It's wise. By staying single, many seniors avoid the emotional toll of watching a partner decline. They preserve what time, health, and vitality they still possess. At this stage of life, boundaries aren't walls. They're shelters. Reason 5 begins where many stories get more complicated, at the intersection of love and family. As we grow older, our relationships no longer exist in a vacuum. A new partner doesn't just affect us. It creates ripples across the lives of our children, grandchildren, and extended family. And in many cases, those ripples turn into waves. A later-in-life romance, no matter how innocent or well-meaning, often triggers resistance, suspicion, or subtle distancing from those closest to us. That the very people who once wished us joy may become skeptical, even resentful, once we begin to seek it again outside the boundaries of the familiar family unit. This is especially true when adult children are involved. A new partner can be seen as a competitor, not just for affection, but for influence, for attention, and for assets. Concerns about inheritance, control, or perceived displacement can create emotional landmines that turn otherwise loving family dynamics into cold, uncomfortable silences. Take Martha, for example. At 66, she met a retired professor at a local book club. They shared a quiet love for history, long walks, and slow afternoons spent in conversation. It was a gentle companionship, built not on fireworks, but on warmth and ease. When she told her 2 adult sons about him, expecting curiosity or perhaps even happiness, she was instead met with silence. That silence, rather than fading, deepened over time. Her sons began questioning her decisions. They asked about her finances, her will, her health, even her mental clarity. What began as a loving connection soon turned into a point of tension. Eventually, Martha ended the relationship, not because it failed her, but because she couldn't bear the strain it placed on the bond with her children. "I never imagined that finding joy again would cost me the closeness of my own sons," she said. Her voice was soft, but the grief in it was unmistakable. This story is echoed in households across the country. The fear that a new partner will disrupt the family's balance, emotionally or financially, is a powerful one. And unfortunately, it often leads seniors to sacrifice their personal happiness just to maintain harmony. Inheritance only complicates things further. When older couples merge their lives through cohabitation or marriage, assets often blend as well, sometimes unintentionally. If legal planning isn't meticulous, estates may be divided in ways that surprise, confuse, or upset the people left behind. Adult children, already mourning a parent's passing, might also feel blindsided by financial outcomes they didn't anticipate. These are not just logistical challenges, they are deeply emotional ones. The wounds they cause don't always heal with time. Choosing to remain single can sidestep much of this turmoil. It creates a clear boundary between personal companionship and family legacy. It avoids potential fractures in relationships that took decades to build. And most importantly, it allows seniors to protect the emotional ties that matter most, those with their children and grandchildren. Choosing solitude in this case isn't about avoiding love. It's about prioritizing peace and foresight. When you've spent a lifetime building connections, preserving them in your later years can be one of the most loving choices you make. Which leads us to reason 6, the quiet erosion of independence and freedom. One of the most unspoken luxuries of later life is autonomy. Not just the ability to make choices, but the ability to do so without explaining, apologizing, or adjusting for someone else. After decades of raising children, managing careers, and responding to countless external demands, the freedom that comes with retirement is sacred. It's the freedom to sleep in, to wake up early, to spend an entire day in silence, or to spontaneously visit an old friend across the country. It's the power to design your day, your week, your entire lifestyle around your own preferences rather than someone else's needs. And yet, introducing a new partner into your life inevitably shifts that balance. Even in the healthiest of relationships, there is compromise. On meals, activities, travel plans, even daily rhythms. What begins as a welcome connection can slowly, without malice, reshape the very contours of your freedom. Walter, 74, had dreamed of train rides through quiet countrysides, solo road trips, and long weekends spent catching up with old college friends scattered across the map. When he began dating again, he hoped to share those adventures, but his partner had other ideas. She disliked flying, preferred familiar routines, and quickly discouraged his wandering spirit. "I wasn't mad at her," Walter said. "I was mad at myself for giving up parts of who I was becoming." His voice trembled with the weight of that realization. This is the danger most seniors never speak about. Not controlling relationships or toxic partners, but good relationships that slowly diminish our lives rather than expand them. Freedom, once eroded, doesn't always announce its absence. It slips away quietly through a series of small concessions. You cancel a trip, skip an event, rearrange your home, change your sleep schedule. Before long, your days reflect someone else's rhythm rather than your own, and you begin to wonder where, in all of that compromise, you've gone. To remain single is not to reject intimacy. It's to protect that rare and hard-earned independence. It means reserving your energy for the things that matter to you, whether that's travel, creativity, solitude, or spontaneous joy. It means waking without the need to accommodate, living without the need to explain. And for many, that level of self-direction is not only nourishing, it's liberating. Love is not the only source of fulfillment. Sometimes, freedom is. And finally, we arrive at the most hidden reason of all, reason 7, the quiet pressure to settle for the wrong reasons. Perhaps the most quietly devastating reality of dating after 65 is the fear that propels many seniors into relationships that don't fit. The fear of being alone, the fear of being judged, the fear that this person, this connection, however flawed, is their last chance at companionship. Society has wired us to believe that love is the prize, that being partnered is the pinnacle of emotional success. So we settle. We accept less. We silence the intuitive voice that says this doesn't feel right and replace it with a louder voice that says, at least I won't be alone. Barbara, 69, met a man through a senior dating site. He was polite, attentive, ready for commitment. On paper, everything checked out. But deep down, she felt no spark. He didn't make her laugh. He didn't challenge her, understand her, or truly see her. Still, she said yes. All her friends were partnered. She didn't want to be the last one at the dinner table alone. 6 months into the relationship, she confided that she felt lonelier lying next to him than she ever did sleeping alone. And that kind of loneliness, the kind that exists within a relationship, is among the most brutal of all. This is the quiet tragedy of settling. It's not always about toxicity. It's about shrinking, about living smaller, choosing safer, hiding parts of yourself just to preserve a sense of companionship. When fear makes the decision for us, we don't expand. We contract. And what we lose in the process, authenticity, agency, peace, is far greater than what we gain. But here's the truth that few people say out loud. Staying single after 65 can be a deeply empowering act. It's not a fallback. It's a conscious choice to prioritize quality over quantity, inner peace over outward appearances, and truth over social expectation. Solitude, in this season of life, becomes a space for rediscovery, a canvas on which to paint new passions, revisit old dreams, or simply rest. It offers a clarity that relationships sometimes cloud, a stillness that restores, a sovereignty that affirms, I am enough. And if a relationship does come, if it arrives not to fill a void but to enrich a life already full, then that's a beautiful thing. But if it doesn't, that too is beautiful. Because nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. You have not failed. You have chosen peace. And in that choice lies an immense strength. The quiet power of being single later in life is not about what you lack. It's about what you protect, your time, your health, your sense of self. We've covered 4 powerful reasons in this section: the risk of family tensions and inheritance disputes, the potential erosion of personal freedom, the delicate balance between companionship and autonomy, and the pressure to settle when the fear of loneliness becomes overwhelming. Each of these reveals a deeper truth, that being alone is not the same as being lonely. In fact, some of the most profound fulfillment, the richest joy, the deepest clarity, emerges only when we grant ourselves space, uninterrupted space, sacred space, space not shared out of obligation or fear, but held with intention. You've reached this point in the journey, and perhaps one or more of these stories resonated. Maybe you've lived them, maybe you've feared them, or maybe you've never put words to the quiet thoughts that have lived in the back of your mind for years. Either way, know this: your choices are valid, your needs are important, and if what you need now is space, stillness, and sovereignty, that need deserves to be honored, not questioned. So here we are, at the end of a journey that isn't really about being single. It's about reclaiming something far more precious: peace. We've explored the quiet truths that society rarely dares to speak aloud. We've lifted the veil on the emotional fatigue that comes from new conflicts, the hidden costs of merging finances, the loss of sacred routines, the caregiving burdens that can crush even the strongest shoulders, and the friction with family that no one wants, but many endure. We've uncovered the subtle ways freedom erodes when companionship is no longer chosen with clarity, but accepted out of fear. And perhaps most revealing of all, we face the silent pressure that tells so many seniors, you're only whole if someone else is standing beside you. But what if the opposite is true? What if the real wholeness begins the moment we realize that we don't need to be completed, that we were never broken to begin with? Choosing to stay single after 65 is not an act of resignation. It is a declaration, a statement that says, my life is mine. And those 4 words carry more power than most romantic promises ever could. They speak to a deeper kind of love, the love of self-respect, the love of quiet mornings uninterrupted, of space that's truly yours, of time that flows the way you need it to, not the way someone else demands. We've spent so much of our lives in service to others, raising families, building careers, keeping households afloat. We've listened, we've adapted, we've compromised, and while those chapters were full of meaning, they were also full of effort, of doing, of giving. But this chapter, the one you're in now, is about being, about receiving, about resting. It is not a lesser chapter, it is not the epilogue, it is perhaps the most important part of the story, because now, finally, you get to choose based on what your heart truly needs, not what the world expects. There's something truly radical in saying no. No to stress, no to drama, no to one-sided compromise, no to rushing through your remaining years to fit someone else's mold. That kind of no is not about shutting doors, it's about choosing the right ones to walk through. It's about building a life that fits you like a favorite sweater, warm, reliable, and perfectly yours. And if a partner comes along, someone who respects your pace, your peace, your rhythms, that's wonderful. If they enhance what you've built without disturbing it, that's rare and beautiful. But if they don't, then choosing solitude is not a failure. It's wisdom in action. Because at this point in life, you've earned the right to protect your joy at all costs. Now let's take a moment to return to the very beginning, to Marvin. Remember him? The widower who dared to date again, only to rediscover that the absence of conflict was more soothing than the presence of company. When he stepped away from that relationship and chose solitude again, he said something simple but profound. I didn't feel alone when I was by myself. I felt alone when I had to lose myself to keep someone else happy. That one sentence might just be the heart of this entire message, because it reminds us that loneliness isn't about the absence of people, it's about the absence of self. And maybe that's the truth we've been circling all along, that the loudest silence isn't found in an empty room. It's found in a life where your voice doesn't matter, where your needs are buried beneath the constant hum of compromise, where your desires shrink to fit someone else's expectations. So let's ask the real question, not are you alone, but are you at peace? Because if the answer is yes, if your life is simple but full, quiet but rich, then you're already thriving. You don't need to be in love to be whole. You just need to be in alignment with your truth, your rhythm, your sense of meaning. And here's something no one tells you. The years after 65 are not the decline. They're the reveal. This is the time when all the noise falls away, when your energy becomes more precious, so you spend it more wisely, when your days grow fewer, so you make them count, when you realize that not every invitation deserves a yes, and not every companionship deserves your heart. It's in this stage that many people finally learn the difference between being busy and being fulfilled, between being seen and being understood, between having someone and truly connecting. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this entire revelation is that you don't need another person to begin that journey. You can begin it right now with the decision to choose yourself, fiercely and unapologetically. Think about the last time you felt truly relaxed. No background noise, no pressure, no negotiation, just stillness, just freedom, just you. Now imagine creating a life where that isn't a rare moment, but the baseline. That's what staying single can offer. Not a life without love, but a life filled with a different kind of love. Spacious, deep, and unwavering. Let's be honest. The world is loud with advice. It tells you to find someone, to not die alone, to start over. It romanticizes coupling as the ultimate goal, even when that coupling comes at the cost of peace. But here's what the world won't say, what it should be shouting from the rooftops. You can be alone and still be radiant. You can be single and still live an extraordinary life. You can choose solitude not as an escape, but as a return to yourself, your essence, your joy. And now, here comes the real twist, the clickbait truth the world isn't ready to admit. Staying single after 65 could be the best health decision you'll ever make. Yes, really. Studies have shown that chronic stress increases risk of heart disease, insomnia, depression, and cognitive decline. And guess what's one of the most common causes of chronic stress in seniors? Conflict in relationships, the emotional turbulence that seems small but adds up in devastating ways. Protecting your peace isn't just good for your soul, it's good for your heart, your brain, your lifespan, your quality of life. You don't need a partner to eat well, sleep well, or wake up with purpose. You need alignment. You need rest. You need laughter on your terms. And if you've ever second-guessed your decision to remain single or felt pressured to change it, let this be your permission slip. You're doing just fine. In fact, you might be doing better than fine. You might be healing, growing, blossoming in a way no relationship ever allowed you to. There's a kind of strength in being the calm eye of the storm, in creating a home that holds only what feeds your spirit, in choosing connection over codependency, in choosing clarity over chaos. There's a quiet fire in solitude, a spark that refuses to dim just because society doesn't recognize its light. So if this message has found you at a crossroads or a quiet moment of doubt, here's what I hope you'll take with you. You are allowed to choose simplicity. You are allowed to want less noise. You are allowed to protect your mornings, your finances, your rhythm, your body, and your mind. You are allowed to be whole, exactly as you are. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not alone in this choice. You are building something rare, a life built entirely on your own terms. And the best part? It's only just beginning. Now, if this journey spoke to your soul, if even one moment in these words felt like truth, here's your next step. Share this message, not just because others need to hear it, but because you deserve to own it. Post a number 7 in the comments if you've made it this far. Let the world know you're not hiding in solitude. You're thriving in it. And be sure to subscribe because in our next video, we'll uncover something equally eye-opening. The 6 types of loneliness after 65 and why one of them might be a secret superpower. Yes, you read that right. Not all loneliness is created equal, and one type might actually be the fuel for your next great chapter. Until then, may your mornings be gentle, your evenings peaceful, and your heart completely, unapologetically your own.